Hello and welcome back to another Euro Fantasy video. Today we're going to be going over the best players that you can pick for Matchday 1. Now, as you can see on the graphic on screen, the way this video is going to go is I've picked out 3 players from each of the positions. So that's going to be 3 goalkeepers, 3 defenders, 3 midfielders and 3 forwards. And we're going to split those into 1 cheap player, 1 middle price player and 1 expensive player. Now, as always, if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe if you're new. We're going to be doing daily uploads all the way up to the start of the Euros. So we've got an upload on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday and Friday this week. Then, of course, we'll have a deadline stream on Friday afternoon as well. And make sure as well, if you haven't already, to join up on the mini league just below me. We're at just under 750 members, I believe, now. So the more we can get, the better things will be. So make sure to join into that. There's also a link in the description which you can auto join on that one as well. So starting off with our goalkeepers, the cheap pick that I have went for is going to be Pence, who is the Austria goalkeeper. Now, I've been speaking about him in a couple of the previous videos, and I do believe he will be the starting goalkeeper for Austria, but based on friendlies and based on kind of injuries and what's going on, confirmations from different managers, it really doesn't look like there is any nailed 4 million goalkeepers. I think you're probably looking at like Pence, I would have said would have been nailed, but then I believe it's I can't remember what the other guy, if it's Lemmer, the other Austrian goalkeeper, also started one of the other friendlies, so it's quite tough between those two as well. Moldovan for Romania would have been another one who looked nailed, but then Nita also had a really good game in their friendly as well, where Moldovan played the other one. And then the other one I think would be Stanek, who is the Czech Republic goalkeeper. He's probably the one that I'm more confident that he is going to start over Kovar. I think Stanek just gets more game time for his club than Kovar does, and in Czech Republic's friendly today, he started in what looked like Czech Republic's main starting 11, so him as well, but he's obviously playing against Portugal. You can see with Pence here, another 4 million keeper, he's playing against France, so the 4 million keepers, one, don't know if they're actually going to be nailed, and two, all have pretty difficult games, so it's pretty hard to decide if we actually want to pick one of the 4 million goalkeepers. I do think the 4.5s are going to be a bit better, but I'm going for Pence for my 4 million goalkeeper. 4.5, the mid-priced goalkeeper, I'm going for Verbruggen. I think he's obviously playing for one of the better teams in the Euros. Obviously as nailed. Koeman confirmed him as the number 1 goalkeeper as well. And I think the group looks decent for Netherlands, and when you're looking at their first game against Poland, it's a team who doesn't seem to score that many goals, and Netherlands do look pretty good defensively. They get some of the probably one of the best defences on paper in the tournament, so I do think Verbruggen looks pretty good at 4.5. There's also an argument for Lunin. The only reason he's not here is because we don't actually know if he is going to be starting. Ukraine have 3 friendlies and he's not played in one of them yet, but it's been Bushan's played one of them, Trubin's played one of them, and then I'd imagine Lunin's going to play the upcoming one for Ukraine. So all 3 goalkeepers have 90 minutes each, so we're not really going to get any confirmation on whether Lunin's going to start or not. And then my expensive goalkeeper, I've went for Castells. Now, I probably wouldn't recommend that you go for an expensive goalkeeper. I think going for 2 4.5s is going to be the move, because I don't think the 6 million goalkeepers are really going to be too worth it. For example, Donnarumma probably isn't going to be worth that extra $1.5 million that you're going to spend on a goalkeeper. So I went for a 5 million option here in Castells. Now, as the number 1 goalkeeper for Belgium, it was confirmed that he will be the starting keeper. And they also look pretty good defensively, and again, you're looking at a pretty decent group with Slovakia in the first match for Belgium. And defensively, I believe they've only conceded in one of the last 6 matches. Obviously, Castells hasn't been in goals for all of them, but it just kind of shows you how good that Belgium defence really is. Now, a lot of people at 5 million are thinking Pickford's going to be the best option, but for me, I think Serbia are going to score, and I don't think England's defence actually looks that great. Obviously, there's a lot of injuries. Basically, their full back line is very injury prone, and it just kind of seems like a makeshift England defence. Obviously, compared to what you would fully expect your best England defence to be, you've only got maybe 2 or 3 of those players in that England defence. And Serbia are looking pretty decent in the friendlies. They're scoring goals. They have been scoring goals in recent matches in the qualifiers and stuff like that as well. And they do have some really good strikers, the likes of Vlahovic, who is in some fantastic form. Mitrovic, always good for Serbia as well. I do think Serbia are going to score against England, which is why I don't have Pickford in here. So again, going for Casteels, I think again the defence looks really solid for 5 million. If you wanted to pick a 5 million option and a 4 million option instead of 4.5 million goalkeepers, that's who I'd go for. Now for our defence, I'd like to think I've kind of went a bit template, but really looking at the ownership, it's not really that high. 17% for Mittelstadt, 21% for DeMarco and 33% for Van Dijk. Now if you were to look at most teams, I imagine a lot of them will have these guys in it, but I can't really go against them, to be honest. They are what I believe are the best picks in those positions. So we've got Mittelstadt in at 4 million. Again, the best 4 million defender. I have spoke about a couple as well. Face looks really good. Banku for Romania looks really, really good as well. So I just think none of them really come to the level that Mittelstadt does, as obviously he plays for Germany. Another really solid defence with a decent group. Very, very likely to start. Gets some goals, gets assists as well, so chips in with those. And then in the recent friendlies, he got 4 ball recoveries against Ukraine and 6 ball recoveries against Greece. So he is still going to pick up a couple of ball recoveries as well as hopefully some clean sheets and some attacking returns as well. Next we have DeMarco as our 5 million defender, and Italy just have the best clean sheet odds out of everyone playing against Albania, and by quite a bit as well. If you watched the last video I done with the latest draft, I've got 2 Italy defenders in there, and that was DeMarco and Di Lorenzo, because Italy have an over 50% chance of keeping a clean sheet. So that's why I believe DeMarco is the best one. And obviously extremely attacking. I think he is just a tiny bit more nailed than Di Lorenzo is as well, and I think he kind of suits the wing back position a bit more than Di Lorenzo does, so that's why I've got him in there. 5 goals, 6 assists in Serie A this season. I think there's no really looking past him. For 5 million, a very, very good pick. And then we've got our expensive option in Van Dijk, and I think with Van Dijk, he looks really good, but obviously he is a bit expensive. Obviously for like that same price, you can go half a million cheaper and get someone like Frimpong, which I do think is a good idea. But obviously we're looking at the best expensive players here. Obviously we don't know if Frimpong is going to be nailed to start. So for the 6 million defenders, it was between Van Dijk and Cancelo, but there has been a couple of rumours that Cancelo might not start the first game, which is why I've got Van Dijk in here. Neil Dawn, of course, captain for Netherlands, and does take penalties as well. We haven't really had any confirmation, like proper confirmation on that. There was an article back in November that said that Van Dijk will be the penalty taker, but they've not had a penalty with like that kind of situation where Van Dijk has been able to do that. So still really unsure, but from what I know, Van Dijk will be the penalty taker for Netherlands, and his ball recoveries look quite good as well. 6.25 ball recoveries in the qualifiers, and that is UEFA official stats, so you're talking an average of 2 extra points from ball recoveries. Again, was speaking about the Netherlands defence when talking about Verbruggen, could possibly be a nice double up there. And a game against Poland, you would hope that they could keep a clean sheet. And obviously he's got that attacking threat as well with the headers from corners. So I do think he looks like a really good option. He is just a bit expensive though. For our midfielders, I've went for Højbjerg at 5.5. Now it's between him and Jorginho. I do think for that extra 0.5, Højbjerg is just going to be a bit more worth it. Højbjerg has a much bigger goal threat than Jorginho does. You can see he scored in both of the previous friendlies, and he also gets a lot more ball recoveries than Jorginho does as well. So I think for the extra 0.5, I do slightly prefer Højbjerg. Obviously Jorginho should have the penalties over Højbjerg, which is maybe a reason why you would want to go there, but Højbjerg's nailed. Still got a pretty decent goal threat from centre mid as well. And you can see with the ball recoveries averaging 5.1 in the qualifiers, so again maybe 1-2 points every game. And then looking at the ball recoveries throughout the friendlies, 3 against Sweden and 7 against Norway, so again 1 or 2 points extra from him every game. We've got Wirtz as our mid-priced midfielder. Now whether you can consider him a mid-price midfielder, I was really looking at the 7 million midfielders for this one. Someone like Gundogan, Szoboszlai, that kind of thing. But I think for the extra 0.5, for Matchday 1 at least, I would be going for Wirtz because he's playing against a weak right side of Scotland. Obviously, they have no good right backs available. Wirtz, after a very, very good season with Leverkusen, I think could really take advantage of that. And I think I'd be very surprised if we didn't at least see a return from him on Friday night. And then for my expensive pick, I've went for Bruno Fernandes. Now, I'm very surprised to only see him at 28% owned because I think he is probably the best midfielder in the game, for at least for Matchday 1, playing against Czech Republic. And the rumours are that Ronaldo might not be starting in the first match. I think there's something with his fitness that could stop him from starting in Matchday 1, which I think always gives Bruno an edge. I think when you're looking at the Portugal team, he always seems to do a bit better when Ronaldo's not in the pitch. He obviously takes penalties as well when Ronaldo's not in the pitch, so I think it just looks like a really, really good option for Matchday 1. Even if Ronaldo is playing, you can see 6 goals, 7 assists in qualifying was really, really good. And obviously if Ronaldo is going to be playing, it doesn't have the penalties extra. Still looks like a good option, but obviously if we do get confirmation Ronaldo's going to miss the first match, I would definitely be sticking Bruno in there because it just looks like really, really good value. Obviously one of the most expensive midfielders in the game, but I suppose that's kind of what you're paying for. And I think the prices are a lot easier to, like, it is quite easy to get the expensive players in the game because there is so many good cheap players, mainly in defence. As I was saying, Mittelstadt, Face, Banku, all the cheapest defenders you can get in the game, and would really allow you to get players like Bruno in your team. So for me, for Matchday 1 at least, Bruno Fernandes would be my number 1 pick for midfield. And then looking at the attackers, I really wanted to go a bit like off template for this one, but it's so hard to do when like considering the games that each of these players have in Matchday 1. So obviously the majority of players do have the Mbappe, Lukaku and Kane front three, and it's really difficult to try find players other than that who would be like a good pick for Matchday 1. So for the cheap players, well, it's not the cheapest. I went for Dobbik at 7.5. Now, I was scrolling through all the strikers, going from the 5 million ones up the way to 7.5, and there just wasn't anyone that I really think would be worth it. So I could have picked a cheap striker that maybe would play, but realistically, I don't think they're going to be one of your best players for Matchday 1, so I had to put it up, and we've got Dovbyk here at 7.5, who I do think is still cheap enough when you look at the price of like Kane. It's 3.5 million cheaper, so I do think Dovbyk, if I was to pick one differential for Matchday 1, Dovbyk would be the pick because, fantastic season with Girona, top goal scorer in La Liga with 24 goals, scored in Ukraine's most recent friendly, so both their friendlies, they played Germany in the first match, 0-0 that finished, and then they just played Poland and lost 3-1, but Dovbyk scored in that match, and he's only 6% owned as well, so you would really be looking really nice if Dovbyk was to pick up 1 or 2 goals against Romania, who really don't look amazing in their friendlies as well. They just drew 0-0 with Liechtenstein, who I don't think have won in something like 15 games before that match. So I think he really does have potential to do really well. And if you want to gamble against the classic Mbappe, Lukaku and Kane front three, I think he would be the one to go for. And then we've obviously got Lukaku and Kane as our mid and expensive price players, so tough again to go against them. Lukaku, 14 goals in qualifying, a nice match against Slovakia in Matchday 1, scored 2 in their most recent friendly in the 3-0 win against Luxembourg as well. Only 15% owned too, so he is technically a bit of a differential, and I really do like him as a captaincy option as well. And then obviously our expensive pick between Kane and Mbappe, I think Austria are just a bit better defensively than Serbia are, so I've got Harry Kane in here. 8 goals, 2 assists in qualifying. I think realistically as well, Kane is just a bit better than Mbappe internationally, and obviously with that slightly easier fixture, and obviously Kane's amazing stats for Bayern this season with 38 goals and 8 assists. Not really going to be much of a differential. I think basically everyone is going to have him. 47% owned. I believe he plays on the third day. I think he plays Sunday. I could be wrong on that. He could be playing on Saturday. But again, you're looking at a really nice captaincy pick as well. But that is going to round off this video. Again, as I said, I would have really liked to go a little bit off template with this, but realistically, when you're picking the best players for Matchday 1, like, everyone is going to know who the best players are. So these players are going to be pretty template, as people obviously want to pick the best teams. So again, a lot of them are going to be highly owned, but we did have a couple of differentials in there. For example, Pence 0% owned, Højbjerg only 1% owned, Dovbyk was under 10% as well. So a couple of differentials if you are really wanting to play that way, if you prefer going for the lower owned players. But that is going to be the end of the video. Make sure to leave a like if you enjoyed, and as I said, we will have daily videos coming out this week, so make sure to turn on notifications so you know exactly when they come out. So once again, thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.